conversation, communications, narratives. So research questions answered, helping the researchers through the statement of the participants. On the other hand, in many cases, research hypothesis for the quantitative research means we have to have the statistics between that. So here there is a difference. So both the terms hypothesis and research questions can have the same meaning. Basically, the qualitative researchers they use the word research question, and when it is quantitative research, they can use both research question as well as research hypothesis. So hypothesis had its own way of getting the required data and the process of making it tested. So for qualitative researcher, they don't do hypothesis testing. They don't depend on quantitative analysis. They don't have to collect data on quantitative basis. They are qualitative. They are the words, statements, verbal statements. So here is the difference between questions and the questions and kind of like the hypothesis. Because we have a human geography, we have social geography, we have population geography, of physical geography. So for geographers, it is an open task. It is an open choices that we could be either qualitative or quantitative or both. But if it is sociology, if it is anthropology, if it is psychology, they are not supposed to become quantitative all of a sudden. So for them, hypothesis has never been a choice. So for them, questions are required. So their questions framing is more important. When they frame research questions, no, their questions gives a very depth of delving to a very important answering to these questions. It is not something that are you drink water, are you not getting irritated. So these are not the research questions. These are verbal statement. Research questions to go deeper. So here we are about to frame question in such a way that they work like an hypothesis when it is a qualitative research. But for quantitative research, we can frame research hypothesis, we cannot frame research hypothesis. That depends upon your research questions or research a topic. So here it is the choices that a researcher can make. You are not supposed to make hypothesis in all the cases. That is not certain criteria that you have to follow for a thesis. Okay, so here it is the differences that I have to make, because in the syllabus, one side we have research questions and one side we have research hypothesis. So hypothesis is something which is very unique. It helps us to describe, explain, or predict the expected. Here we can use some statistical test like the trend analysis, like the regression analysis. So hypothesis makes us some predictions because we do have data, we do have observations, we do have some basic study before we frame a research hypothesis. We are known persons. That's why it's a clever choice. So it's describe, explain, and predict the expected result of an outcome of a research. So it makes us somehow predict. That's why the imaginations we predict that might be rejected or accepted, but the predictions can have with the hypothesis framing. Type of research design that we have to follow, either it is qualitative or quantitative. No, it is quantitative only when it is a hypothesis. Research study process ko ye design এটাকে কিন্তু direct করতে পারি, a direct process that we have to follow. Means the data collections, those how many cases to be selected. So here also we get those ideas. It is part of research process. It is part of research design that we have a research hypothesis. So how to get the data? It tells us the process that need to involve. Okay. The data collection, the analysis and interpretations, it also tells if we have hypothesis, we do have to have all these process to be followed. Data collections, how to have the data collections, what sort of data we need, because some statistical tests require certain amount of data, certain amount of participation. Otherwise, that particular test cannot be applied. So here framing a hypothesis means what sort of method to be followed is also identified. So it helps us to frame a research design also, and the process that is to be applied for a researcher. It is also the direction set by the hypothesis. Now, as we need variable for framing a research hypothesis, so a little idea about what it mean by variable. We all know variable কথাটার মানে হচ্ছে that vary from one point to other point, from one time to other time, from one person to other person, that have the variations. Each and every part in this world have the variations. We we brought up, we grown up, we die. It's a process. Each and every phenomenon in this earth have its story. So here we need to see that changes, that is the variations, that is the variable. We have to check it. So it is the quality, it is the property, characteristic, behavior, attributes of an individual, of a group, object, situation, activities that changes or vary. So these things which change, which vary over time, that is called variable. That can have some manipulations when it is the laboratory based research, when it is the field based research, when it is the variable that is to be entered in a computer based activity, it can be manipulated, the number can be changed. So here we see the changes, and that is how we research is the researchers make some addition. We do have different types of variables. Okay, we call it like independent, we call it dependent, we call it extraneous. So basically we are very commonly known in the variables, we know are very common with the two variables, independent and dependent. The rest of the three we can get it from like environment থেকে কোনো কিছু না হলে সেটা environmental variable. If it is the demography, like the age, gender, religion, language, this is demography. Extraneous variable, I taught maybe in the last classes I have discussed with you. So I will discuss all this in little bit of an example, taking an example. Okay, so independent means that function independently, it not depends with any other factors, like the rainfall is an independent factor, like the sunshine, which is an independent factor. But the relations that we develop in that particular relation, which function as an independent, if it is sunshine and rainfall, if it is the duration of duration of sunny time and the rainfall, so it is sunshine which is acting as a independent. If it is rainfall and agriculture, so here rainfall playing as an independent function. So independent means which function independently, it is not dependent. Rainfall is dependent upon agriculture. If it is the drought and the sunshine, so drought is an outcome, drought is not a factor. So drought is dependent on the sunshine. If it is a sunny day throughout the month, it is going to be drought. So independent means which function independently, which is not supposed to depend upon any such other factor. So here we are going to get a variable which is independent, which we can use to search out the effect. So here it tells like it can be manipulated by the researcher to cause an effect. So আমাকে যদি ইফেক্টটা দেখতে হয়, এটা একটা কজ হিসাবে ফাংশন করতে পারে, we call it independent. On the other hand, we do have the dependent variable. Dependent মানে যাকে আমরা রেসপন্স ভেরিয়েবল বলে থাকি, আউটকাম ভেরিয়েবল বলে থাকি. So if there is a agricultural output, that how much rainfall gives us how much agricultural output, how much happiness is due to the education. So happiness is an outcome of education, happiness is an outcome of like the family of a strong family, of educated family. So if I am trying to establish education and happiness, so here happiness is my outcome and education is my independent function which gives me an happiness, because we do it testing with both the variables that vary. So outcome variables that gives us the response is the response variable which researcher try to identify. Here is an example. A calm and quiet environment at bedtime at night will allow sound sleep to a patient in a general ward. So here in a hospital case, calm and quiet environment is the independent variable. It functions independently. But the sleep of a patient, it depends upon a calm and quiet environment. So here, calm and quiet environment at bedtime at night will allow sound sleep to a patient. So sound sleep to a patient, that is the dependent variable, and independent variable is calm and quiet environment. So here two independent variables. Calm is another part and quiet environment is another part. So here independent and dependent variables both can make a relationship. Extraneous variable বলতে বোঝানো হচ্ছে that particular addition which we never take into the research. These are outside effect effect of an outcome. Like I tell an example of like air pollution has its linkage with cancer, but we also know that smoking is also affect people with cancer diseases. So I am only establishing air pollution as part of the disease which is cancer, and that person have a smoking story. If I didn't look at his or her story using smoking as part of his life, then we make it badly affected. I cannot conclude saying it like this is air pollution which makes a cancer of a patient. I have to combinedly make it like air pollution along with smoking make this cancer patient. So if I'm not taking smoking as part of my research, only air pollution, that smoking is working as an extraneous variable. So if I'm not taking consider smoking is part of my research, then I have to remove those patients with cancer disease as part of my respondent. So I have to take extra caution to make this extraneous variable removed to bring a strong conclusion. So many such researchers, many of us face very difficult situation when it is the extraneous variable. Majority of the researchers suffers because there are so many functions working together to make a result. Like if it is the agricultural product, this is not only the rainfall which helps us, it is the soil quality, it is the water retaining capacity of that soil, it is the the tracers that used, that manures that was applied. So if I tell it like this is due to this is due to rainfall that agriculture productivity is happening, so I am denying all other factors. So if I'm not taking all these factors taken into considerations and I'm just concluding due to rainfall this is happening, so I'm making some wrong assessment. I have to conclude in such a way that this particular factor playing an important role, that is 50% of the agricultural product that comes from rainfall, another 50% maybe some other factors that this. So here that extraneous variables, we need to make a clear statement before coming to a conclusion. So here we have to take care, because we researchers, when we are human geographers, that is the tedious task, a very difficult task for a human geographers to remove all those extraneous variable. So what we can do, we could make, although the statement clearly stated that these are the other variables that might function as an extraneous, so that the audience, the readers, can make an analysis of my conclusion, that this conclusion is not certainly 100%. There are chances of other such variables, other such functions may have some dependency or independency in between these two variables. So here we have to take care of this extraneous variable. In any such activity, these variables play an important role. Researchers makes an attempt to identify those extraneous variables before the research study is initiated, and thereby control the influence of extraneous variable on the research study through a specific design. So here we could take an extra care, although we do suffer who have gone through research, মানে আমরা যখন রিসার্চ করে এসেছি এখানে, আমরা এমফিল পিএইচডি করার মাধ্যমে যা বুঝতে পেরেছি, there are so many difficulty that arises due to the presence of these extraneous variables. Demographic variables, we all know that is part of people, that is age, gender, height, weight, vision, hearing, speech. So these are part of our calculations of the populations and the demography. Now the important discussion starts with hypothesis. We do have two of the definitions. Either we are about to discuss with the null hypothesis or the alternative hypothesis. So here from the main discussion starts. Okay, we do have hypothesis under these different categories: simple hypothesis, complex hypothesis, directional hypothesis, non-directional hypothesis, causal hypothesis, associative hypothesis. So it can be both. এখানে আমাদের নালও হতে পারে, আমাদের এখানে অল্টারনেটিভ হতে পারে, বাট আমাদের কাছে সিম্পল যখন বলছে আমরা নিচে চলে যাচ্ছি। এখানেও বলা যেতে পারে আমাদেরকে বিষয়টা কিভাবে আছে। এখানে সিম্পল বলতে when two variables are there, only two variables, on independent, on dependent. Complex when there are two or more than two variables, either in the independent category or in the dependent category. That is the complex relation. Directions means we fixed the direction, like it is the high intake of protein means high body of a body muscles of a person. So high কথাটা এখানে অ্যাড হলো বলে এটা ডিরেকশন। Low vision of a person makes her low occupability. That is low and low added. That is directions. When we didn't make any such direction, we call it non-directional. Causal means cause and effect relationship. Associations means we do only see the variations. That one change affect the other change. They may not function as a cause and effect associations, cause and effect relation, but there is a chances of like an associations. So association, that is the correlations we do. Causal hypothesis where we do regression, cause and effect analysis. Non-direction, direction, we are supposed to make high and low category, like a high যখন কোনো কিছু ক্ষেত্রে হাই অ্যান্ড লো বলে থাকি, গুড অ্যান্ড ব্যাড ইউজ করে থাকি, দ্যাট মিনস উই আর ফ্রেমিং ইট ইন এ ডিরেকশনাল ওয়ে। Complex, more than two variables in the independent category or in the dependent category. Simple means we have only one variable. So here is the explanation of all these category of the hypothesis that we can frame. We can frame on all this as part of our hypothesis framing. Simple এবার এখানে যেটা বললাম on independent, on dependent. Okay, so let's look at an example. এখানে বলছে too early position changing of a fully bedridden patient will prevent bed sore. So এখানে only one independent and on dependent. Independent হচ্ছে এখানে too early position changing. Too early position change যদি করা হয় একজন fully bedridden patient একটা ওয়ার্ডে রাখা আছে হসপিটালে, নার্সিং হোমে, if we make that person changed the position in every 2 hours, what will help? It will help to prevent bed sore. মানে পিছনে যেটা একটা অংশ আমাদের একটা কনস্ট্যান্ট পজিশনে থেকে যেরকম একটা আনইজিনেস আমরা ডেভেলপ করে থাকি, that can be somehow overcome. So here is the hypothesis. Too early position changing of a fully bedridden patient will prevent the bed sore. So here too early position changing is independent and the prevention is independent. Move to the complex. In a complex hypothesis, we do have more than two independent and more than two dependent. Okay, now for a fully bedridden patient, too early position changing, too early back care, and a high protein diet will build up body resistance, will promote blood circulation, and will prevent bed sore. একটু ওয়েট করো এক সেকেন্ড। Okay, so here we do have more than two independent and more than two dependent. Okay, for a fully bedridden patient, too early position changing, too early back care, and a high protein diet will build up body resistance, will promote blood circulation, will prevent bed sore. So in this example, we see three independent that function independently, and that functioning of independence
Thank you, Sir Kedak. মনে হয় স্যার পেট পড়ে আছে, লেট হয়ে গেছে। স্যারকে কেউ ফোন করে দেখে দেয়।
सुब्रतो भाई, कल हम लोग चलेंगे हावड़ा हावड़ा राजधानी से।
আচ্ছা, আমি বেরিয়ে গেছিলাম, আমি লক্ষ্য করতে পারিনি অনেকটা। অবশ্য পড়াতে পড়াতে দেখছি আবার তোমাদের সামনে কোশ্চেন নিয়ে আসতে গিয়ে দেখছি আমি বেরিয়ে গেছি। শোনা যাচ্ছে তো এবার? আমি অডিবল তো? এক সেকেন্ড, আমি এখানে একটু কম শুনতে পাচ্ছি তোমাদের, আমার এখানে একটু অসুবিধা করে। এক সেকেন্ড। ওকে, let me share with you my presentation. আমি কোন জায়গায় ছিলাম একটু বলবে কাইন্ডলি? কোন জায়গাটা ছিলাম আমি? নন ডাইরেকশনালটা হয়ে গেছিল? কোনটা স্লাইডে আমার লাস্ট ছিলাম একটু বলে দাও আমাকে। শুনতে পাচ্ছ তোমরা
सर
বাকি? হ্যাঁ,
यस
কোন?
सर सर
হ্যাঁ,
एग्जांपल्स बता रहे थे आप
कौन सा वाला
थ्री
डिरेक्शन?
इंडिपेंडेंट हाँ थ्री इंडिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल
यहाँ पर
डायरेक्शनल हाइपोथेसिस
हमें कौन जगह? हाँ, डायरेक्शनल हो गया था या फिर चल रहा था?
हो गया था एग्जांपल बता रहे थे आप
नॉन डायरेक्शन भी हो गया था ना?
हाँ
বাকিটা একটু বলো, নন ডাইরেকশনালটা হয়ে গিয়েছিল? আমার কোন স্লাইডটা তোমাদের পড়াচ্ছিলাম, কোন জায়গায় ছিলাম? হ্যাঁ
सर
হ্যাঁ, কোন
স্যার
স্লাইডটায়
কমপ্লেক্স
ছিলাম?
হাইপোথিসিসের এক্সাম্পল গুলো ছিল।
হ্যাঁ,
কমপ্লেক্স হাইপোথিসিসের এক্সাম্পল গুলো চলছিল।
ওকে। তো ডাইরেকশনটা স্টার্ট করেছিলাম, তাহলে অনেকটাই পিছিয়ে চলে গেছিলাম, অনেকটা পড়িয়ে দিয়েছিলাম আমি তোমাদেরকে। ওকে, সো আমি যখন তোমাদের কমপ্লেক্স হাইপোথিসিস পড়িয়েছি, এখানে মোর দেন টু ভেরিয়েবলস ইন দি ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট সেট অর অন দি ডিপেন্ডেন্ট সেট। ওকে, ডাইরেকশনস বলতে যেটা বোঝানো হয়েছিল, ডাইরেকশনাল হাইপোথিসিস where we set the direction that in this example we see like high quality nursing education will lead us high quality of nursing practice skills. So we can write it in other ways also, like nursing education will lead a quality of a nursing practices. So nursing education will lead us to a nursing practices. High টাকে তুলে দিলে এটা কিন্তু নন ডাইরেকশনাল হয়ে যাবে। So direction means we fixed the quality in that scene. Either it is high or low, it is good or bad. These kind of directions we set for a hypothesis. In non-direction case, we don't set this kind of parameters, either it is high or low, bad or good. Here only this is a relationship, like teacher-student relationship influence students learning. Here we could add like good student and teacher relationship influence good students learning. Good word can be added here in this scenario, but we are not supposed to adding any such. It is only a non-directional, we are moving in a non-directional characteristics. So it is something which we are not supposed to that much we need to take care. It is upon the questions we do have, it is upon the theme we do practice as part of our research. Causal is a cause and effect relation, as I told you, like rainfall is the cause for agricultural productivity. So how much change in rainfall will affect how much of a productivity. So here we have to establish the cause and effect. If I say like the earning in a family will have its impact to the lifestyle practices or the food purchasing power or the purchasing power parity, so we can make relations. One can function as a cause which is an independent and the dependent which is the output. So here it is the establishment of a cause and effect relationship. On the other hand, when I say it like associative hypothesis, here we are not supposed to make any cause and effect relationship. It is only an association. Like we do have the observation in observations like we have like rainfall have its impact on happiness. Many a time we see people are happy when there is rainfall. So can we even count that how much rainfall will have its impact over the happiness? Happiness is not something which is an outcome of rainfall, but we see people are happy when there is rain. So it is an observation. That observation can be a nonsense observation also, but this is not quantifiable. It is something which is an observation, which is an association, that একটা চেঞ্জ হচ্ছে তো আরেক জায়গায় আমরা কিন্তু অবজার্ভ করতে পারছি. So it is something which one variable if change, it have its impact on the other variable also, but they are not in a cause and effect relationship. It is something which is an association that we see in correlation. Many times we see in correlation, but they are not having any such cause and effect relationship. So these are the part of like knowing about all these hypotheses. Now the important that we can talk about is null hypothesis. Before I start with the null hypothesis, I will open the floor, my students. You can tell me that what it mean by null hypothesis. তোমাদের কোনো আইডিয়া আছে নাল হাইপোথিসিসটা কি? তোমরা যদি আমাকে একটু বলতে পারো তাহলে আমি আরো সেভাবে ডিসকাস করব তোমাদের সঙ্গে যে হোয়াট ইট মিন বাই নাল হাইপোথিসিস, তোমরা সেটা কি জানো? আমরা আগে যেটা পড়লাম সেগুলো হচ্ছে হাইপোথিসিসকে ফ্রেম করার প্রসেস। বেসিক্যালি উই হ্যাভ টু ডিল উইথ নাল হাইপোথিসিস এন্ড অল্টারনেটিভ হাইপোথিসিস। এখানে নাল হাইপোথিসিসটা কি একটু বলতে হবে তোমাদের, যদি আমরা কেউ জানি। যে কেউ একজন যদি আমরা জানি যে নাল হাইপোথিসিসটা কি, কোনো আইডিয়া? যে কেউ একজন বলো। মানে এটা একদম এটা না যে তোমাদের মানে বলতে হবে, তোমাদের কোনো আইডিয়া আছে কিনা নাল কথাটার মানে কি?
There is no existence of any significant.
No existence of any significance. So that is to be converted into a hypothesis. The same meaning. The meaning of a null is when it is a hypothesis. When it is a hypothesis, it is also having the same meaning. That's why we use the word null. So when I say null hypothesis, it means what? There is no such association. There is no such relationship. So null hypothesis, and we are framing it taking two separate variables which may have a relation, and we have to frame a null hypothesis. It means we have to make it in such a way like there is no such relationship in between the two variables with an intention to reject. Null hypothesis has always framed in a negative connotation. That's why it is the null. That word null means there is no such significance relationship. So when I say it like null hypothesis, it means there is no relationship between the two variables with an intention to reject. যখন রিজেক্ট করব means তারপরে কি হবে, অল্টারনেটিভটা কি হবে, there is a relationship. So in a null hypothesis, my main function is to reject it. Hypothesis testing যখন আমরা করি, my main function would be to reject a null hypothesis, that is statistical achievement. So null hypothesis has always framed in a negative connotation with an intention to reject. Reject করাটা হচ্ছে statistical achievement. So when I say like there is a relationship, তাহলে আমাকে এটা null করতে গেলে কিন্তু লিখতে হবে there is no relationship. So এটা যে কোনো কিছুকে বলা যাবে না যে there is no relationship between rainfall and agriculture productivity, এরকম বোকামি করা যাবে না। আমাকে এমন কিছু এস্টাবলিশ করতে হবে, দেখতে হবে যে there is no relationship between tobacco smoking and the cardiovascular diseases. Like I have to make it like if I want to establish that there is a relationship between tobacco smoking and the cardiovascular disease, so I have to frame it in a null pattern. Null means there is no relationship. Canona, if I have to say it like there is a relationship between the tobacco smoking and the cardiovascular diseases, তাহলে আমার এর ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডে কিন্তু ডেটা থাকতে হবে। I need the data, so I frame it as a null with an intention to reject. So when I have sufficient data to prove otherwise, that means we got it sufficiently supported with the data. So before we have data, we call it null. That means we don't know. So the framing of a null hypothesis is a statistical hypothesis, so that we can reject it, and rejection of a null hypothesis means statistical achievement. You have got it proven with the data that is collected. So here is the importance of a null hypothesis. If you don't understand it, I will tell you in the later when we'll visit in the department, because this is the statistical way of looking at a null hypothesis. You have to understand the meaning before you frame it. Null hypothesis is a statistical hypothesis that is to be proven with data. Otherwise, we have to say that there is no relationship. It is the null. If it is remain as it is, we don't have data sufficiently at our hands, we have to accept it. So there is no risk we are taking to making it an established format like there is a relationship. So যখন আমাকে রিলেশনশিপটা এস্টাবলিশ করতে হবে দুটো ফ্যাক্টরের ভিতরে, দুটো ভেরিয়েবলের মধ্যে, I have to be very clearly state the relation in between two variables. That's why we tell it the first sentence. We have to make some clever choice, intelligent guess. এমন কিছুকে এস্টাবলিশ করতে যাব না যেটা হয়তো অলরেডি বিন এস্টাবলিশড। এমন কিছু কাজ করা হয়ে গেছে সেটাকে আমি নাল হাইপোথিসিসে ফ্রেম করতে পারবো না। সো উই ক্যান নট frame a null hypothesis until we have all those idea that how they have the associations or kind of like causal associations, এরকম কোনো কিছু আমরা নাল হাইপোথিসিস হিসাবে নিতে পারবো না। সো নাল হাইপোথিসিস করার আগে আমার কিন্তু বেটার নলেজটাকে এস্টাবলিশ করতে হবে। নাও starts with null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is also called statistical hypothesis because this type of hypothesis is used for statistical testing. Null hypothesis predicts that there is no relationship between the independent and dependent variable. So this is null because there is no, as Noshaba Naz told, like there is no significance association. That is the word meaning of null. So we are framing null hypothesis in such a way so that we can reject it. Rejecting a null hypothesis means we statistically making it somehow achievement. একটা নতুন আইডিয়াকে আমরা জেনারেট করতে পারলাম, একটা রিলেশনশিপকে এস্টাবলিশ করতে পারলাম। তার আগে পর্যন্ত সেটা কিন্তু নাল, মানে there is no relationship. That is the ultimate requirement of a null hypothesis. সিম্পল নাল মানে দুটো রিলেশনশিপ দেখাতে হবে, there is no relationship between, যদি আমাকে বলতে চাওয়া হয় এক্সাম্পলস দিয়ে, bed rest will not relieve severe asthmatic dyspnea. এখানে আমাদের নাল হাইপোথিসিসটা কি হচ্ছে, নো কথাটা দিয়ে এখানে স্টার্ট হচ্ছে, বেড রেস্ট উইল নট রিলিভস সিভিয়ার অ্যাজমেটিক ডিসপিনিয়া, যাকে অ্যাজমেটিক ফাংশন ডিসফাংশনস আছে, বেড রেস্ট করলে কিন্তু সেটা সরবে না। তো যদি এখানে বেড রেস্ট করার উপর দিয়ে এটাকে সরানো যেত তাহলে আমাকে ডেটা কালেক্ট করতে হবে, দোজ হু হ্যাভ অ্যাজমেটিক ডিসপিনিয়া after they get some bed rest, is there any such improvement taking place? যদি তারা বলে যে না বেড রেস্ট করার মাধ্যমে আমি একটু বেটার ফিল করছি, it means there is a relationship in between taking bed rest to improve your asthmatic dyspnea. So এরকম কোন association যদি আমি এক্সপ্লোর করতে পারলাম through my research framing, then we can reject this hypothesis and it is null. So we have to reject it so that the association can be established between bed rest and asthmatic dyspnea. So our intention is to make the null hypothesis in a negative connotations with an intention to reject. Reject করব তখন এর অপোজিটটা হবে, alternative mean bed rest have reliefs for this severe asthmatic dyspnea. That is the alternative. Okay, so this is null as we have only two variables. Complex. Smoking, drug abuse, alcoholism, tobacco use have no relationship in the occurrences of malaria, mumps and chickenpox. এখানে তো ক্যান্সার বললো না, রেসপিরেটরি বললো না, সিভিডি বললো, because these are established. We all know that cancer has its link with the smoking, with the air pollutions, with the processed food. So এমন কিছু আমি এখানে establish করতে চেষ্টা করব না as part of my null hypothesis which has already been proven, which has already been established. So you are trying to make a relation with malaria, that is the mosquito borne, mumps that are like the skin disorders, chickenpox which is again a skin disorders or something which is seasonal. So we are trying to make an establishment like either these are also having linkage with the drug abuse or alcoholism and tobacco use or smoking. যদি এগুলো রিলেশনশিপস থাকে তাহলে আমরা এটাকে কিন্তু আদারওয়াইজ লিখতে পারি। সো if we don't have data, we have to write it in such a way that there is no relationship in the first, so that we can take data and make it otherwise. So if we don't have sufficient data, we have to establish it as a null. So here smoking, drug abuse, alcoholism and tobacco, all four are independent, have no relation in the occurrences of malaria pumps or chickenpox. So the dependent of all these output variables, outcomes have any relations with the smoking drug is established, then we can write it in an alternative fashion. That is a statistical achievement for us, that we got it established, the relations between drug abuse and mumps, alcoholism and chickenpox. So যদি থাকে তাহলে এটাকে আমাদের স্ট্যাটিস্টিক্যালি প্রুভ করতে হবে। That's why we call it a statistical hypothesis. If we don't have sufficient data and statistical methods to be write it otherwise, it is a null, means there is no relationship. Sorry,
Yes, sir, we have read it in statics also.
yeah.
Yes, sir, we have read this null hypothesis in statics. And when we reject this null hypothesis, we get the statement true.
Yeah, we create the statement true. That is the statistical achievement. That is the
Yes,
new
sir.
addition, new knowledge creations. Means we frame it in such a way that rejecting a null hypothesis means you are creating something new as part of the addition to the existing thought process. It is the creation of something new. So rejecting is the achievement of a null of any such null hypothesis. When we reject it, it is the achievement of a researcher. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. We do have small discussion আছে 15-20 মিনিট আর লাগবে, দেখে না একটু। Sorry. Now causal hypothesis, high intake of fluid doesn't cause tissue edema. তো যারা আমরা জল বেশি পান করি, টিস্যু মানে শরীরে কোনো একটা অংশ ফুলে যাওয়া, সো তার জন্য জল খাওয়ার সাথে কোনো সম্পর্ক নেই। It may be due to some other disorders. So if I have to establish either high intake of fluid is the cause of the tissue edema or it is something which is the other disorders. So we have to frame it like high intake of fluid doesn't cause tissue edema. Edema is the outcome, intake of high fluid is the cause. So here it is the causal relationship of both the variables. So we have to write the pattern of a null hypothesis, like these are the process of writing it. Statistically, we have to have this way of mentioning a null hypothesis. It is an assertion, a statement that we have to hold true as we have to hold as true unless we have sufficient statistical evidence to conclude otherwise. As I told you in the last slides, like null hypothesis is framed because we don't have sufficient statistical data. If we have sufficient statistical data, we could make it written otherwise. That's why we call it alternative hypothesis. So it is the statement that we hold as true until or unless we have sufficient statistical evidence to prove it otherwise. It is denoted by hypothesis 0, means mean is equal to 0. There is no relationship. In a population mean, if a population mean is equal to hypothesized mean, the null hypothesis is written as like the population mean, that is the H0 is equal to population mean, that is the mu is equal to 0, means population mean is equal to 0. So on the other hand, we do have alternative hypothesis. The first one is the null, and the alternative means that population mean is not equal to 0. If it is not equal to 0, it might be otherwise, like it is either greater than 0 or it is less than 0. So this is the associations. When I say the null hypothesis is equal to the 0 with the population means, it means there is no such associations, no such relation. It is only a chance factor. If any such value of r is like 0.5, 0.6, when the value of r is 0.5, 0.6 and we test it applying the t-test and this is rejected, so we say this 0.5 and 0.6 of relationship, it is due to a chance factor only. there is no such relations, there is no such associations. So যদি associations থাকে তাহলে সেটাকে আমরা কি করব, অল্টারনেটিভ ওয়েতে লিখছি, it is not equal to 0, মানে তাদের মধ্যে কোনো associations আছে, সেটা greater than 0 হতে পারে, either less than 0 হতে পারে. So alternative hypothesis can have three way of mentioning, either it is not equal to 0, either it is greater than 0, either it is less than 0. So this is the three alternative way of writing the alternative hypothesis. লেভেল অফ সিগনিফিকেন্স এন্ড কনফিডেন্ট, এই দুটোকে আমাকে বোঝানোর জন্য একটা গ্রাফের ইউজ করি আমরা বিশেষ করে। তবে এখন তোমাদের বুঝিয়ে দিচ্ছি যে সিগনিফিকেন্স এন্ড কনফিডেন্ট, উই basically use the word 95% significance, 99% significance. So when I say it, how much how much we got it significant. So when I say it 95% significance, so I am taking risk of 5%. My confidence is 1 minus alpha. Alpha is my significance. So it is denoted by alpha in the first lines. Significance means the percentage risk to reject a null hypothesis when it is true. So when I am taking risk of 95, so I am taking risk of 5 only. 100 মধ্যে 95 কে বাদ দিলে 5 থাকছে। So 1 minus alpha, that is my confident. It means if you go to field, you see like there is 5% differences of the relations that I got established by accepting it at a 95% significance. So when I say it, I'm significant at 95%, it means I'm taking risk of 5%. That is my confident. So confident level is 1 minus alpha. If it is 90% of my significance, the alpha 1 minus alpha is 10. That is my confident. I'm confident that there is no more than 10% cases which will say it otherwise. So in both there is a graph. So when it is two-tailed, positive and negative, this is the graph normal distribution. 95% acceptance of a hypothesis, it means I am rejecting it to both the end, positive and negative, so that 5% is breaking into 2.5 2.5 in both the end, tail, two tail, এটা একটা tail, এটা একটা tail. So this is the area where my acceptance is falling. I'm accepting my hypothesis, that is 95% significance. Means if you take 100%, if you take 100 cases, 95% will say it what I say as part of my hypothesis, and there is chances of 5% maybe, and the positive side they say it like no, this is not true, and maybe like 2.5 say like yeah, this is true. So that 2.5 and 2.5 combining both means 5% I am taking risk. So this is my rejection area, that is my risk area. Okay, so this is the null hypothesis, this is alternative hypothesis. So যখন আমাদের ডাইরেকশন সেট হয়নি, সিম্পল হাইপোথিসিস ফ্রেমিং কেসটা আছে, তখন এই পার্টিকুলার গ্রাফটা আমাদের ইম্পর্টেন্ট। when I do have the direction sets like mean equal to 0, hypothesis mean and population mean equal to 0, and alternative is less than 0. So when I say it like less than 0, we are only concerned with the one tail of a test. When it is a directional hypothesis, we do have one tail test. My acceptance level is 95, which includes my positive part also, but the one tail that is in the negative side, which is 5% of rejection, 5% the confident that I am, it is only the below part which is lesser than 0. On the other hand, if it is like the positive side, the positive cases, we say it like greater than 0. As I told you, like we do have three alternative of a hypothesis, either it is not equal to 0, we don't know how much in the positive or negative, so it is not equal to 0, which is established. Then the digit to be taken care of. যখন আমরা স্টাডি করেছি তখন আমাদের কাছে digit উঠে আসবে, that explains that how much is the relationship. And if we have framed it in a directional way, either in the positive or negative, it is the one tailed test, right tail বলি এটাকে, পজিটিভ বলে থাকি. So here is the cases we have to make sure if it is framed in such a way that greater than 0, then this particular test is required. Now this important slide is very important, very important. We do make some error. So type 1 error and type 2 error. So when null is true and we say it like okay, accepting, so it is the correct. When null is true and we do reject it, we have many such wrong data collected, and that rejection is to be accepted. So if any such occurrences we see, happens, we do some statistical test and this happens, we are committing a crime, we're committing a mistake. That is, we call type 1 error, which is not that vital error. But when null is false and we got it accept, okay, so that is type 2 error, the beta error. So this is the huge error. Huge error. আর যদি আমি রিজেক্ট করলাম তাহলে কারেক্ট হলো। Now I have to take an example. Null is true and null is false. Criminal proceedings এর ক্ষেত্রে এটা কিন্তু ইউজ করা হয়। Like when a people is criminal. So criminal, if he or she is a criminal and he is like he got it somehow not proven. So a criminal is moving freely because this particular case is not proven properly, but he or she knows that he is a criminal. So when that crime is not proved, that criminal is moving freely. It means we're committing an error. When a criminal is moving freely, it means we're committing an error, but that error is type 1 error. একটা criminal freely ঘুরে বেড়াচ্ছে. On the other hand, when someone is a genuine person, someone is not having any criminal activity, someone is a very kind of like the genuine and the proper persons, but he has been found as guilty or he has been criminalized. So a person who has not committed a crime and it is proven that he is the criminal, although he knows that he hadn't made any such crime, but it is proven otherwise that he got it crimed, he is the criminal, we are making type 2 error. So when a criminal is moving freely, as the proceedings haven't found him a criminal, it is type 1 error. But when we are making someone who is a genuine person who hadn't made any crime and the proceedings or any such activity proven it otherwise, so we are making an innocent person as criminal. So an innocent person when criminalized, we are making an error which is type 2 error. So it is an example only. আমি তোমাদের এখানে সামঞ্জস্য দেখা দিতেছি যে কিভাবে একটা এরর আমরা কমিট করি। একটা প্রপার কেসকে স্টাডি করতে গিয়ে যদি সেটা জেনুইন থাকে তাকে রিজেক্ট করলাম তাহলে সেটা টাইপ 1 এরর। আর একটা জায়গাতে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে কোন একটা কেস যেটা একদম মানে পুয়ারলি ফ্রেমড হয়েছে তাকে অ্যাকসেপ্ট করে নিয়েছি, সো সেটা টাইপ 2 এরর অংশ হিসেবে আমাদের হতে পারে। ক্রিমিনাল অ্যাক্টিভিটির ক্ষেত্রে এই দুটো এক্সাম্পলস এর খুব ইম্পর্টেন্স আছে যেন তোমরা সেটাকে বুঝে যেতে পারো যে আমি জানি as a researchers we know that where is the problem, and by knowing it we got it somehow established, we got it let like this is to be established, this is to be written like that way. So here we are committing crimes, we are making mistakes, so that to be taken care of. Type 1 error is going to be accepted, but when something is wrong you know it and you got it accepted, and when it is like the things which basically making the entire process looks vulnerable, you have to take it care of. Okay, the probably the second last slides, it is the procedure, entire procedures we have discussed here. Entire procedure of testing a hypothesis. First, state the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, both the hypotheses to be framed together so that one to be rejected, others to be accepted. So the first step of framing a hypothesis is to make it null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. Then state a significance level, 1%, 5% and 10%. For a social scientist it is 95, that is the acceptance level. Up to 99 it is okay, but in many cases 99 is not achievable for a social scientist. So 5% is okay for us. So 5%, 1% and 10% means I am confident at 99%, at 95%, or it is significant at 99%, 95% and 10%. I'm confident like it is only this percentage, which may vary when you go to field and take a cross sections analysis. Okay, number second, we do have to take which test we do apply, either it is Z or T test or F test. Now calculate the value of the statistics and compare the value, calculated value, with the given value. We have to calculate the hypothesis, calculate the test, either t test or f test or jet, whatever we follow it. Then compare that p value with the calculated value. যেটা আমরা বের করলাম সেটাকে আমরা কি বলি, calculated value with the tabulated value, and compare this value to reject or accept the hypothesis. So this is the procedures which we are supposed to follow while framing a hypothesis. We have to frame it as a null or alternative. We have to take the significance label, then the test that we have to follow, find what is the result from that test, and compare that result with the given table value. For chi-square, for t-test, for f-test, for j, these all are having some table value. Compare the table value with the calculated value and I reject it or accept it. There is a procedure of accepting or rejecting. Okay. This one is the last slide. So after having discussions with the hypothesis as it is, and we are having to taking care all these patterns or all these discussions, here it is to conclude, like testing of hypothesis is not decision making but helps for decision making. Here it is we the researchers to write the conclusion. It gives us a directions, it gives us an avenue that how to make it conclude. It is the researchers to take the decision, the final decision of a hypothesis. Number second, test doesn't explain the reason as why the difference exists. So test বলতে কি বোঝানো হচ্ছে, এখানে আমরা ডেটা পুট করলাম, ডেটা আমাদের একটা রেজাল্ট দিয়ে দিল. So it is not something which the test gives us what is the explanations it is to be. It is the indicator. It আমাদের indicate করছে. It only indicate that the difference is due to fluctuation of sampling or because of the other reasons, but the test do not tell about the reason causing the difference. Okay, so the test is not something which is to explain everything. It is the researcher, it is we to decide that what is to be the conclusion to be drawn based on the digits or something which that we get from that analysis. So it is the we researchers to conclude the explanations. So test is only an indicator, it provides us avenues. Number third, tests are based on the probabilities and as such cannot be expressed with full certainty. As a researchers, আমাকে এখানে একটু মানে তোমাদের অ্যাড করতে হবে, certainty it is something which you chosen. If it is a huge database you have created, a long data sets that is created from your statistical analysis, it means you can make it a certain. Like we do have the theory that has been built by scholars or the professors of their ages, we got to know their idea through their writing it and make it popularized. So you can make it certain, but that is your choice. That is your choice, that how that research was framed, how much cases you do have covered, who these peoples are responding, either they are originally true persons in that sense that they know it. So it is your choice to make it certain, or it is to be explained in such a way that this is only a probability, this is only a chance. I'm just explaining it, I'm just concluding it, that don't take it seriously or certainly. So this is you to conclude the finding of any such hypothetical analysis. Okay, so this is your choice. We are the researchers to make it a final conclusion. Fourth, statistical inferences based on the significance test cannot be said to be entirely correct evidences concerning the truth of the hypothesis. So here on more addition, like it is not the entire truth. It is the researchers to complete or conclude in his own or her own voices, own way of writing it, like yeah, this is the difficulty it was there to find these conclusions, or to make it like this is the conclusion of my research. So it is all about getting a better idea, getting the better information, getting the better knowledge, so that we could raise some of the critical questions, some of the important questions that researchers can answer through the data, collecting data from the field. And if it is certain that you are very confident, then you have a strong statement also. So here is the liberty of a researcher to making it like yeah, it's okay to make it this statement, so that the other people also can have their own way of framing it in different way. So with this slide I conclude here. Okay, so basically it is for like I could have like one more of a half an hour more. If it is in the offline mode, I would have more examples that could be taken, but in an online mode maybe that you also don't feel it like how to have the connections. When I say it like null hypothesis, I do take examples until you make it connected. সো ইট ইজ দি অবস্টেকলস, এটা আমাদের ডিফিকাল্টি যে অনলাইন আমাদের ক্লাসগুলো করতে হলো। তো এনিওয়ে তোমাদের কোনো রকম ডিফিকাল্টি, কোনো রকম অবস্টেকলস এখনো ফিল হতে গেলে আমার কাছে ডিপার্টমেন্টে এসে যে কোনো সময় জানতে পারো যে স্যার এই জায়গাটা আমাদের একটু অসুবিধা হয়েছিল, যে ক্লাসগুলো আমি তোমাদের নিয়ে নিয়েছি। সো অ্যাজ উই ডোন্ট হ্যাভ মাচ অপশনস, আমাদের কাছে সময় কম থেকে যাচ্ছে, তার জন্য এটা আমাদেরকে এভাবে কমপ্লিট করতে হচ্ছে। সো here we end with this discussion. We do have 1-2 more classes that we need. Okay, one is sampling and the kind of like the scalings, and rest I will share with you that ethical practices of research, critical writings. I will share with you some of the document you do read by your own, because in my discussions I have shared what it mean by the ethical practices. When I say it like you have to reject it or to accept it, it is you to choose. So it is the ethical practices. When you know what is the wrong in the data, you have to make it like it's wrong. You are not supposed to make it accepted the wrong. So that is the ethical practices of a researcher. So it is your choice to make like which is to be written in how what sort of ways. So that is researchers choices. So any such wrong in conclusion means we're creating the wrong idea, and if it's resurfaced, it will encircle that wrong to be present in the society. So don't do that. As early career geographers, as early career researchers, we do learn how to have that ethical practices to be developed. So these are learning process. You do have to learn a lot, read as much as possible, so that make it more of a clarification. Anyway, so here I end with this discussion. Okay, and I again thank you for your patience. You got it like the 10 o'clock this now. Okay, you had, many of you had a very tough schedule throughout the day, so a big thanks to you all. And definitely this is more than 70% of our syllabus is over. So 1-2 things that you can read it, and I will take 1-2 more classes, like one is one sampling and other is one scaling, and the data will be shared with you. Okay, so again thank you so much and have a good night. You all can leave now. Okay,
Good night, sir.
yeah, thank you, Ramesh.